Welcome, Byron. I'm so excited to have you on the Entrepreneur Mindset Show today. I am ready to drill in. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here and to speak to you today.
So I know that you're an entrepreneur. I know that you're a coach. Tell me a little bit about what it was like when you first started a business. Tell me about some of those challenges and some of the reasons you got into business.
Yeah. So the reason I got into business was after my dad's cancer, I went on this journey of transformation. I turned my health around. I lost over 50 pounds. And along the way, I learned everything I could about nutrition, changing behaviors, fitness, and everything else in between. And all of that went into be the foundation of my first best-selling book. And naturally, the next progression of that is I wanted to start business. So I started growing this company, working with people from around the world to help them get their health under control. And while things were doing really well, truth be told, I was completely in over my head. Because while I was really good from the coaching aspect, I had no clue what I was doing when it came to running a business. I didn't know how to lead and manage teams. I didn't know how to prioritize what needed to get done. I didn't know how to deal with the pressure. And it just pushed me to a point where I just became completely burnt out. My business felt like this mental and emotional drain. And I remember just looking at my calendar with the feeling of dread over the fire that I needed to fight next. I just realized I can't carry on this way. So I knew I had to make a choice. I was like, I could either figure out how to get this under control or I can throw in the towel and go get a job. So I committed to learning everything I could about mindset, high performance, managing people, dealing with conflicts, effective leaderships, and everything I could to really figure out how do I become a CEO and someone who could really step up and lead this business. Once I got all that under control, I was working at the time with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, and naturally into our conversations, a lot of these challenges started coming up because even though we were focusing on their health and energy, they were talking to me about what was draining it, issues with their team, fires, and never-ending problems. And I uncovered that actually helping them navigate that was not only what I enjoyed doing, it was also my superpower. So that was where I really started pivoting the business. I was like, you know what, this is what I want to focus on. That was what I love to do. So that was the natural progression for me. So in short, I kind of fell into it. Like I started with one thing, and then as I evolved and grew, the business grew and pivoted with me.
So I think what you're saying is really interesting because businesses pivot. Where you start is not necessarily where your business is going to end up, and it's okay for that pivot to happen. I think that's a really important thing to note there in what you just said, is that you pivoted.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, they get a business idea and then they just keep trying to force it. And sometimes you have a fantastic idea and you need to put in the work. You need to really trust your gut that it's the right path. But also at times you've got to know when it's okay to change direction. The pandemic is a perfect example. Like there was a lot of business models that overnight just became broken. And the people who really flourished were the ones who recognized, okay, there's other opportunities here. There's ways that we can grow and serve a different need. And you can still do it in the same realm, but it might be looking at, okay, is there a new product? Is there a new service, a new offering? It's just always allowing yourself to think a few steps ahead. Or if you're not getting the happiness and fulfillment from it, it's being like, do you know what? It's okay to try something new. And just really guiding yourself that way.
And I think that comes with that CEO mindset that you were talking about. I had to learn how to be a CEO. I couldn't just have a business. I needed to learn how to be a CEO and put all of those pieces into place. And I think that's part of that CEO mindset too.
100%. And it goes back. I put a post on LinkedIn recently talking about this, but it's essentially a business school teaches you nothing about running a business. Like I did a master's degree in business. I thought that would prepare me, and that all focused on like HR and strategy and all of that stuff. But anyone who's run a business knows it's completely different. Like at this point, I've worked with CEOs and entrepreneurs in 15 countries. And predominantly, a lot of our focus is all on navigating people. It's like, how do you get your team on board? How do you bring out the best of them? How do you deal with difficult conversations and conflicts? None of the stuff that you're taught at school or college. And it's very much a trial by fire learning experience. You're thrown into the deep end. And it's why so many first-time entrepreneurs or CEOs become completely overwhelmed. And it's just, for me, such an interesting thing, like as to why I specialized in helping people get that under control, because it was something that I went through myself, and it was only coming out the other side that I could really look back and be like, you know what, there's so much more to this than people realize.
Okay. So if it's normal, but it doesn't have to be your normal, right? A lot of people go through this, but there's a better way. And I'm hearing you talking about and alluding to the fact that there's a better way than overwhelm, burnout, feeling like you're just completely underwater with everything in your business. So when you are I work with a lot of new entrepreneurs, and that's who is listening right now, and they're just getting started. There's so many things to do. There's so many avenues to take, things to put into place, that you start wondering, what step do I take? You get stuck in that overwhelm, but you also get stuck in overthinking. How do you move forward out of that?
So when anyone tells me that they're overwhelmed, 99% of the time, it's because they're underplanned. They have so many racing thoughts and so many different ideas that they just don't know where to begin. And that's why if you're someone who's struggling right now, who wants to do something, but you're just stuck in your own head, you just need to break it down. Like, this is going to be the most simplistic advice I'm going to give, but it's also going to be the most powerful. You need to figure out what is the first thing you need to do, because we all build it up in our mind as this huge ordeal. It's like if you want to start putting content out there, as an example, so many people are like, I need to build this brand and this audience, I need to do all of these things, and then they just get analysis paralysis and they don't do anything. Whereas if you figure out, okay, that's what I want to do, but what's the first thing I need to do? It's creating that first video. Push yourself to do that. That's how you're going to build your confidence. You're going to get some momentum, and then keep being consistent. And it's the same as if you have sales targets to hit. Rather than worrying, okay, I need to earn X amount of money, focus on how do you acquire that first customer? How do you book that first sales call? How do you just overcome your fear of picking up the phone and just getting that first no? Like, so often we just keep focusing on the future and 5 steps ahead, which is great. You need to have a vision that you're aiming for. Is if you don't have a target, you're going to miss. But then you need to break it down into micro actions and just be like, what can I do today that's going to allow me to move forward? Even if it's a small action and step, it's going to be so much more manageable.
Okay. So how do you choose off the list of 18 things, which comes first?
It depends on the goal and target. But a lot of the time, you've just got to sit down and filter it out and be like, okay, if that's where I want to be, and I really like guiding people to work on 90-day sprints, because while it's great to know where you want to be a year from now, too much can change. And that's also a little bit daunting. So it's just figuring out, okay, if I want to be here in 90 days, that's my vision and my target. What tasks here or action items are likely to get me there? And then it's going through the lens of filtering out which is actually going to have the biggest benefit. If I use myself as an example, I talk about this in one of my books, but going into last year, when I was saying my KPIs and where I wanted to be, I had so many different ideas. I wanted to launch a podcast, I wanted to launch a YouTube channel, I wanted to start focusing on TikTok. There was so many different things to get done. And that was why I looked at it through the scope of, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my target. Which of these most likely are going to support it? And then I could really condense it down and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Once I get this done and get through these 90 days, then I can go back and be like, okay, based on the traction I've got, what do I have time to add in next? And sometimes you just don't know. You've just got to allow yourself to test something. Like, if you've got an idea, you're not going to know until you actually start taking action on it, how it's going to play out. So all overthinking is doing is keeping you stuck. So sometimes you just need to take an educated guess and be like, okay, this is what my gut's telling me I need to do. Go and do it. If it doesn't work out, then you can cross off the list and you can test something else. That's better than just having 18 ideas and not actioning any of them.
I agree 100%. It's about being willing to take that risk and just do something, and knowing that it's progress, whether it works or it doesn't, because you can either say that didn't work, I'm going to check it off and put it aside, or it did work, I'm going to do more of it, and then take the next step past that. So you make progress regardless of the outcome of that task you chose and how it went.
I couldn't agree with what you said more. There is one caveat to that, though.
Okay.
You also have to really audit and be clear with yourself when something isn't working. Because if I go back to my first company, one thing I did at the time, I was running, because I was focusing on health and weight loss, I was running all of what I called 7-day no added sugar challenges, where I get people in a Facebook group, I do 7 days of content and try and deliver all of that. And it's a little bit embarrassing to admit this, but I will. Like, I tried that 7 times before I gave up and realized, you know what, this strategy isn't working. And this is why I just kept convincing myself, next time's going to be different. Next time's going to be different. And the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results. And that's why you have to try things, but you also need to go in with the mentality of knowing when something isn't working and allowing yourself to change direction. So I'll put my hand up and admit I've fallen victim to this, and I'm a lot wiser now because of it, and that's why I don't mind sharing that story, even though it is a little bit ridiculous in hindsight, like looking back on that. But this is where you have to like take that step back, because so many people just get caught in the moment, like this is what I'm trying to do, and try and push and force it. And you have to balance that with being like, okay, I need to slow down and really evaluate what's going on, because that's where you'll figure out how to then move forward.
I agree. And I think we've all been there. I've been there. I've done the same kind of thing where I've done it over and over thinking this time it will be different. No, if it's not different, make a shift, do something different. And that's okay. It's okay if it doesn't work the way you thought. So I know you've been talking a lot about your books, and I know that you have a new book coming out, and I got a chance to read through it and I love it. I can't wait for everyone to pick up a copy. One of the things that I was reading as I was going through your book was you talking about tackling boulders before pebbles. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like in terms of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so in the book, I discovered that when it comes to getting someone out of their own way, there's 7 key areas that every single one of us struggle with in one way or another that stops us from living the life that we want. The issue is, though, some of them have a far bigger impact on us than others. And that was why I imagined it and I saw it as like, it's almost like climbing up a mountain. You've got this backpack on with all of these rocks that are weighing you down and stopping you from moving forward. So you have to let go of them one at a time and give up on carrying them in order to free yourself to move up to the next level. And that was why, going back to being an entrepreneur, the boulders reference is so relevant, because I find from the clients I work with, one of the biggest things that's stopping them from actually moving forward is they're spending most of their days in a state of reaction, whether it's putting out fires, dealing with problems, never-ending demands. They're in this reactive cycle, which, as I'm sure you know from the work you do and even running your own business, there's no way you can make the right decisions or effectively lead when you're in that high-stress state.
No.
So that's the first one you need to get under control. You need to get out of a reactive state and then really figure out how you process problems and handle them as the best version of yourself. And then the next one is fear. It's knowing what you need to do, but it's not doing it because you're afraid of what if you fail? What if you get rejected? What are other people going to think? So often we get stuck in our own head here. So instead of taking the actions we need to take, we convince ourselves we're not ready. It's not the right time. We talk ourselves out of it. So those are the 2 big boulders that I've found when it comes to being an entrepreneur that you really have to overcome. Because if you're just stuck in busy work and reactive problems, you're not going to have the time for the tasks that actually matter and create the greatest impact. But then even if you free yourself up from them, if you're not doing them because of fear, you're not going to make progress. So that's what's the 2 biggest things I find we have to break through in order to get someone to move forward.
Yeah. I know, honestly, I find myself sometimes when there's a task ahead of me that I'm not sure I can accomplish successfully, I'll go do the admin stuff that I can breeze through. It's easy. It doesn't take any brain. I can just flow through it. And it's just a way to procrastinate against the stuff that I'm not sure of. But the moment that I can say, wait a minute, this doesn't need done right now, I can actually just put it aside and get to the stuff that I need to focus on. It makes a difference.
It just comes down to being very self-aware. You've got to ask yourself, well, am I doing this because it actually matters, or is it just because it feels comfortable? Because it's really easy to convince yourself that the tasks that you're working on matter, whereas in the grand scheme of things, there's a very big difference between being busy and being productive. And I know there's a lot of young entrepreneurs who are listening to this right now who probably are their own worst critics, who beat themselves up or then worry about these things. But one thing I will let every person know, that the challenges you're going through are so universal. Like, I've got CEOs I work with one-to-one who are running billion-dollar companies, and they still get stuck in their own head. They still overthink, they doubt themselves, they avoid the things they want to do. And this is why it's all about having that level of compassion, of being like, you're human, it's okay, and not beating yourself up over it. But at the same time, if you actually want to make progress, you've got to hold yourself to a higher standard. You've got to really figure out, okay, what actually matters? Why am I avoiding this? And what do I need to do to get out of my own way? Because I know it's scary, and I know your goals and ambitions are terrifying, but what you want is on the other side of that. And the more you put it off, the more you're going to feel frustrated that you're actually not moving forward.
And I think what you just said there is that what's on the other side of that is just more important. if you started, especially if you started to do more good in the world, or you started a business to bring more stability to your family finances, or to just serve your need to learn and grow as a human being, you can't get to that if you allow yourself to stay stuck in the fear and stay stuck in that moment where you're not doing anything that will help you make progress.
Yeah, it's such an empowering thing. And one thing I found time and time again is the biggest reason most people don't achieve their goals is they focus too much on what they want, but they don't figure out who they need to become to make it happen. And this is why it's so important to realize that every new level of success requires a new level of you. So your current habits, your behaviors, your routines that got you to where you are probably the very things that are keeping you stuck. And this is why if you're struggling to make traction right now, you need to figure out, okay, what do you actually want? But then you have to take a step further and ask yourself, okay, what is the version of me that made that happen? If you close your eyes, you get that mental image, and then you ask yourself, okay, what have they done that got them to where they are? What are the habits they developed? What behaviors do they have? What are the non-negotiables they followed through with every single day? That's going to allow you to reverse engineer the journey. And then you then know, okay, this is who I need to start showing up as to create the life that I want. But then the added benefit from that is when you're in that moment and you're procrastinating on starting that project, you're putting off having that difficult conversation, you don't want to get out of bed, rather than relying on discipline or willpower or hoping you feel motivated, you have to ask yourself, what would the person that I want to become do right now? Would they make excuses? Would they put it off? Or would they pick themselves up and force themselves to take action? Because when you start showing up as the person you want to become, that's how you'll eventually start evolving into that person. Your confidence will go up, your belief in yourself will start coming up, and that's how you actually get to that next level.
You are strengthening all of those neural pathways that are saying, yes, I can get to be that person, and this is how I do it. And every time you carry through on those actions, those behaviors, those thoughts, those habits, you are just strengthening all of that to become that new level of you, so that your business does become what you set out for it to become.
Yeah. It's just having that future focus, because the more you get stuck in your own head, the more you're going to hold yourself back. And one of my favorite questions with this, and I've been using this a lot with clients at the moment, is when you're in a situation where you don't want to do something, ask yourself, am I going to regret later having put this off? Because I did this the other day. Like, I had a really long day and I really didn't want to go to the gym. And I was like, I'm tired. I just want to sit and watch TV. I was just asking myself, it's like, am I going to regret this evening not having gone? I was like, yes, I am. So rather than beating myself up later, I was like, I'm just going to go face it. And I've had clients implement this really simple question whenever it comes to like starting work on a project or speaking to a member of their team, whatever it is, because a lot of the time we avoid things and put them off, and then later we beat ourselves up. So we have this cycle of regret and just guilt. I think that just then weighs you down further. So it's just all about looking at, okay, how can you get out of your own head and push yourself to take action? Because once you get going, it becomes so much easier. Like, we've all had it where we procrastinate and then we finally dive and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. So it's just like, what can you do to just take that first step? And it becomes so much easier.
Absolutely. So really, you know, what we've kind of talked about today is going from that burned out, kind of overwhelmed entrepreneur to really saying, you know what, I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to think about what it will take to get me to that end product, that end result that I want. And I'm going to pick something and get started. And in doing that, what you're doing is releasing the fear, you're releasing the reactive state. You're getting kind of out of that reactive state and actually working and doing things and being productive versus chasing the fires. And those fires aren't going to get you anywhere. They get you tired at the end of the day. That's it. And so you just got to let go of that guilt that you feel as well along the way.
Part of it as well is also making a commitment. It's just figuring out, okay, what do I want to do and how can I fully commit to this? And this goes back to breaking it down into small periods of time. I remember when I first started my business and I was working with a coach at the time, and he was really pushing me to do video content. And I was so nervous. I've never done videos before. I don't know what I'm doing. I kept looking for reasons not to do it. And he was like, okay, what I want you to do is to commit for the next 30 days, every single day, you're going to do a Facebook Live. Pick something, hit live, go and do it. He's like, your first video is going to suck. But by day 25, your confidence is going to be out. You're going to overcome all of your excuses. It will start to become a habit. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given, because it just forced me to get really uncomfortable. And once I got through the first few, I was like, this isn't that bad. And it's just the same as anyone listening to us right now. If you're feeling stuck, just figure out, okay, what one thing can I commit to doing for the next 30 days? And then just hold yourself to the standard where, regardless of what's going on, you find a way to make it happen.
Yes, 100%. So I know that my listeners are going to want to know more about you and learn more about your book. And it's coming out very soon, just in a few more days it will be out. So where can we find your book and where can we connect with you?
So the book, Maybe You Should Give Up 7 Ways to Get Out of Your Own Way and Take Control of Your Life, is available anywhere you can get books. So I'm so excited to share this with the world because it's basically from a decade of doing what I'm doing and working with people in 15 countries. I've seen how the biggest stumbling block in the way of most people's success is themselves. So I've basically taken everything I've learned and helping people get out of their own way and broken it down in a step-by-step of showing showing people how to actually get to the next level. So like I said, you can get that anywhere you can get books. You can find out more about me at byronmorrison.com. And I'm also active on everything from LinkedIn to Instagram and Facebook. Just search for author Byron Morrison and follow me and reach out.
Perfect. And I'll put all of those links in our show notes to make it really easy so that you can just go click and connect with Byron. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, sharing your wisdom, your nuggets of knowledge over the past 15 years of working with your clients and entrepreneurs, and just really digging in and understanding what it's like to be an entrepreneur and how to make it easier, how to make it a little bit easier to get to that end goal that you had envisioned when you decided to start a business. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time and everything that you've shared today.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you for really letting me share this message. Thank you.
Thank you.